I'm Anaita Agatich from Speechmark, and we are truly honored to have with us Anna Brannigan, the distinguished author of Word Aware 2, Teaching Vocabulary in the Early Years. Anna has over 20 years experience as a speech and language therapist. She works in Gloucestershire and Worcestershire NHS services. In a specialist role, she supports schools and early year settings develop inclusive practice. She has also co-authored Word Aware, Language for Thinking, and the soon-to-be-released Language for Thinking Color Edition. The format of the webinar will be 35 minutes of presentation, followed by a 10 minutes Q&A at the end. Here are just a few housekeeping notes. You can ask questions anytime during the webinar by typing them into the Questions tab on your right-hand panel. However, we will have them answered at the end of the presentation, and I will ask only the questions without mentioning the names. Also, you can hide that panel when not required by clicking the orange arrow on top and maximize it again by clicking the same arrow. If you have any concerns, please type them into the chat box and we will try to resolve them as best we can. Now, before I hand over to Anna, let's quickly have our first poll. You will see it going live on your screens now. We just want to get an idea of who is listening in today. Please answer what your current role is. All right, the results are coming in. We will keep it live for a few more seconds. Okay, so it looks like we have a majority of speech and language therapists at about 62%. The next is teachers at about 10%. We have around 10% early years practitioners. So that looks great, amazing. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to ask Anna to take over now, please.
Hello, welcome. So I'm Anna Brannigan, and I've written this book, Word Aware, with Stephen Parsons, and we're both really passionate about developing vocabulary and trying to find something that's really practical and easy to incorporate into everyday practice. So that's what this book is all about, and how our other books are used as well. It's really about finding something that's really useful. Okay, so why are we so interested in language? I'm a speech and language therapist, so that's where my background is, but it's really looking at where the evidence is of why that's meaningful. So really, out of all of the early years foundation stage areas of learning, communication, language and literacy are the best predictor of later attainment. So in literacy and in maths, children need to have those maths concepts to really make a difference. If you don't know what perimeter is, you can't do the maths. And the literacy is more obvious, but the maths are really key. So actually, if we give children a really good foundation of language, then they're going to have greater academic success. And then, so why vocabulary? And vocabulary seems to be one of the key factors that makes a really big difference to children. It's really the thing that actually has a really significant impact on their academic and their life skills. So this is a fairly scary study. It looks at orally tested vocabulary at the end of the first grade, which is about the same as our year one, and it's a significant prediction of reading comprehension 10 years later. So the words that you can understand at 5 are affecting your GCSE results, and they've furthered up the study now until you're 35, so it's affecting your economic output at 35. So actually the words that you're understanding is affecting how much you're able to get on in life and what an impact that has. And this is supposing that actually we're not doing anything to intervene to develop vocabulary. So vocabulary is something that we really can make a difference to. It's not static. If we actually give it some attention, we can make a real difference to children's lives. And real difference to their academic success. We really love this quote from Britain, which is literacy floats on a sea of talk. Get that right, get the language right at the bottom, and then we can really sail off with our reading and writing. We need that really concrete understanding in spoken language before we start reading and writing. And we really need strong foundations for growth. Houses need strong foundations, and they need skilled builders. Vocabulary needs strong foundations, and they need skilled practitioners. We really need people out there who really know what they're doing to support children. We've got a wonderful workforce in this country supporting those children in their early years, and knowing what they're doing and how to support vocabulary is going to make the most enormous difference. These are the areas that we cover in teaching vocabulary. So lots of different things that we can do to support. We can have direct teaching of vocabulary, identifying words to make sure that they're taught effectively. We can teach concept particularly, those tricky words that children find so difficult to understand, the ones that are ideas and places and times, so first and next and under and wide, all those tricky concepts. And then we've got involving families, because we all work together. We're greater if families and early years practitioners work together. Children need to enjoy words, have fun with words, and then identify the words they don't know with word detective. And then we need to celebrate words by making words count, and then we need to support those extra children. So the ones that we're going to work on today, that I'm going to do in this presentation, is direct teaching and make words count. And we're going to start with direct teaching. So what we do is use this approach, come from Blackevich and Fisher. It's about selecting the right word and then teaching it in a multisensory approach so that it's really effective learning for young children, and then we activate it to make it meaningful. So we use play to help them really enjoy the words and be exposed to it in a relaxed, enjoyable situation. And then we come back and we review them. We review those words in order to really establish those words in their long-term memory. So when we're selecting words, what we want to look for is what's called Goldilocks words. Those are words that are not too easy, but not too hard, but just right. And this is the definition of those Goldilocks words. And the most important one is that they are really useful words. If you're ever in any doubt, is this a good word? Just think, how useful is this? How am I going to be able to use this? How is the child going to be able to use it in their life? They're likely to be encountered again. So they're going to come across this word, and therefore they're going to establish the word much more strongly in their ideas of what's going on. So if they're going to hear it again, then it'll add to the meaning that they already know. And they're going to add a bit more meaning to it every time they hear a word. And then just thinking, does the average older child have a good level of knowledge of this word? So a child who's maybe 2 or 3 years older than them, actually have they already got it? So it's something within that's just a bit harder than the level they're at now, but not too much harder. So words that they're going to hear again that are really useful and that they will learn naturally, but let's help them to learn it now so they've got really established, ready to put the next layer of words on. So we want to make sure we're picking a range of nouns, verbs and adjectives. Because if you're looking at a topic and if you go onto Twinkle or you go onto the TES, actually what you get is quite often is a list of nouns between a topic. And those nouns are really useful, but actually the verbs and adjectives need to be identified as well. So I'm thinking about a pirate theme that you might have in an earlier setting, and you might have some of these nouns that might come up. So you've got treasure, adventure, captain, and all of those are really nice, useful words. But then we can add some verbs as well, so sink and escape. And then some adjectives, dangerous, brave. And actually having that breadth of words, having all those different types of words, actually that gives you a really lovely mixture of words to use. Perhaps if you were telling a story, or you were describing a picture, or you were acting out a scene in the home corner. So lots of really good words that you could use effectively. And you're going to hear again, and you're going to come across them in books, and you're going to have them in conversations when you're talking about your topic. What we don't want to do is spend too much time teaching words that are too easy or too hard. So we've got these ones on the left-hand side. These ones are too easy. So these are words you'd expect a child of this age to already have. So they would know pirate or sword or swim or fight. And there will be some children that don't have these words, and they might need a bit of extra help to learn those. Then you've got the other ones on the right hand, which are a bit harder. Pieces of 8, Jolly Roger flag, bloodthirsty or ransack. All of those words are lovely, rich words that storytelling words that actually are lovely words for children to be exposed to, but not to spend a lot of time teaching so that they learn them and they could use them themselves. It's sort of words that we're using in the setting. You might want to use some of them more than others, just that happen to come up in the story. That's great. We want to be exposed to all of these words. We want a lovely, rich vocabulary, but actually we don't want to spend time teaching those words. We want those words on this other side that we're going to hear lots of times, going to encounter again, maybe encounter in lots of different situations. And if children are struggling with these easy words, then we'll need to make sure that we're giving them a bit of extra help, which is what you'd expect for children who've got additional needs. You might need to do some extra work on those very basic things. Or you've got children who are coming in with English as additional language and not really knowing any of the English words, then actually let's have a look at those easy words and see if they can learn some of those. So we've done our select bit, so we've selected some really useful words, and now we're going to teach. Okay, so this is one of our pirate words that we had here, which is escape. And the first of all we're going to do is we're going to use a symbol. We've used these communicating print symbols, but you can use Boardmaker and lots of other symbols, or Google Images. Then you've got some syllables, so clap the syllables of the word and say it to your partner. So the children are actively involved in producing the word so that they're hearing it and saying it at the same time. So we've got a really strong sense of how that word sounds, and we've got a picture to hang some knowledge on it. Then we want to expand the meaning. And you can do any of these things, anything that helps. So just a simple definition, experiencing the words, telling a story, relating the words to what the children already know. So any of those things that help. So if we were thinking about escape, it would be to get away from somewhere or something. It would be maybe acting out, trying to escape, so holding on to each other and seeing if they can run away. It could be telling a story, so something that was interesting and engaging. So maybe it could be a story of, I had a beloved rabbit. We had a lovely rabbit. My daughter really loved the rabbit. And we carefully put the rabbit away at night time in the cage outside. We locked it up. And then my husband went out and gave it some food. And he forgot to close the rabbit hutch. And actually in the morning when we came out to give the rabbit some food, the rabbit had escaped, it had got away, and we didn't know where it was. And my daughter was so sad that her rabbit had escaped, it had run away, we didn't know where it was. So that story is engaging the children to things that they might know about and might relate to. And then getting them to talk about what's ever happened to them. Have they had any pets that have escaped? Have they ever seen anything escape, heard a story? Get them to talk about it. Then we've got an action. What can we do for an action for escape? So it's just basically a little hand gesture or a body gesture or holding on to something just to show what escape is. So it's a nice multi-sensory experiential thing. So we've got something about the sounds, we know the word, and then we've got some simple language. We want simple words they already know to describe this new word and experience it and have something, a sense of a story and an action to help us click into what's going on. And then we can sing a song. So these are some songs from the book, and it's basically, you're saying the song, you're going, ooh, ah, say the word, escape, ooh, ah, clap the word, escape. And all of these songs are available on YouTube channel. If you Google YouTube, Word Aware songs, you can click in, and there's ones you can sing along to. There's a few examples in there. You've actually got the word escape in, and you want the other ones that are blank, so that you just have a blank word and the children sing along. So those are there for anybody to access. Here's another one. They're very, very simple, very repetitive, just getting the children to say the word lots of times. And as we know in early years, singing is something that children love and they're very engaged in. So we've done our select, we've selected the right word, then we've taught it, and now we're activating it. So it's about encountering that word throughout the day. Adults are using the word interaction for children. We're using comments, not questions. So by this stage, we've only just introduced the idea to the children. We're not expecting them to explain it or tell us about it, but actually they need to hear those adults using those words in sentences so that they then learn how to use them in sentences. We want small group work and play-based opportunities. So how early year settings work. So you've done your bit of teaching, and then there's choose time where there's all sorts of different activities going on, and the vocabulary activities are just part and parcel of those, and we just embed those in. So one of the ways to do that is to place the words around the setting in places where adults might be prompted to use it. So this is a central one that a nursery class has got them, so they've got them there ready to be used. They're in a prominent place where adults go past it. You can also put them in places where those words might be used. So if you were doing the word first, you might put it by the door to line up. If you were doing empty, you might put it in the salmon tray. All those things. Escape could be, that might be by the door as well. So that we've got places where we could remember to remind those adults to use them in their everyday conversations with children. Here's some things with keeping with our pirate theme here. We've got maybe some equipment to explore in some ways. So if we were thinking about teaching, if we taught the word discover or wanting to activate it, right, then let's think of something we could do. I know, put lots of boxes out so we can with some interesting things inside. So actually have that symbol on the table to remind adults that this activity is all about discovering. So the adult is prompted when they're coming over and playing with those children, they're actually using the word discover. Let's discover what's in this box. I don't know what's in the box. Let's discover. Let's have a look at what's going to be inside. You can have topic tables. So we've got our pirate ship here that you'd have out if you were doing a pirate theme. That would be one of the things that you'd have on a table somewhere. And here we've got some of the words that you've already learned and maybe could incorporate into your play. You've got escape there. Maybe somebody's going to escape from the pirate ship. We've got adventure. We've got brave. So adults can add in to when they're doing some role play with the children, when they're using their little figurines around the pirate ship, that they can remember to use some of those words while they're talking. Some of the early year settings that we know have got those words that they're going to have with a particular pirate ship, and actually they just go away in the drawer with a pirate ship. So next year when they get out, or next time, next term, whenever they do it, they get out that pirate ship, they've already got some words ready to use. And then obviously some will go missing, but actually you'll have enough there. And then maybe sometimes swapping those words around so that they're not always the same. So the pirate ship isn't just those words, but there might be some of the other ones from the topic that you've already taught from before. Another simple one needs to be adult-led is a sorting activity. So these ones that are these are sorting animals that are wild and not wild. We really advocate not using opposites at the same time. So it's really helpful if you just use wild and not wild rather than wild and tame, because children often learn both labels and then they get really muddled up about which one's which. So we tend to just do wild and not wild, and that really works. And it's a short-term thing you do for a while until they've really got the concept of wild, and then you can bring in the opposite when you want to, when's the right time to do that. Then we've got reviewing. Okay, so let your parents know. We really want to work with our parents so that they know what you've been doing in the early years setting, but also really encouraging them to use it, working with your parents to say, right, if you see that word on the window, actually see if there's any way you can put that word into conversation. As you're walking home, as you're driving home, we've all got dead time. We've all got time in our days where we have to do something with our child and we don't have any jobs to do because we're just walking home or in the car. But is there a way that we can talk about it as we go? So when we're walking down, we can talk about, if escape had been our word, then actually let's talk about, oh, when I was a child, I had something that escaped. The parent telling the child about their experience of it. Okay, and having that, or if the word was adventure, actually you could talk about some of the adventures that you've had, actually making sure that parents can do that. So not giving them a huge task to do, because parents are very busy and find it hard to balance everything, but actually we have got that dead time and really engage them to say that actually we can have some really nice conversations. Because children, when they come out of early years, they don't want to tell us anything, and I mean my children never don't tell me anything at all, but actually if we could have a conversation about something and just talk about something they've been engaged with, that could be really powerful, and we are greater than the sum of our parts when we all work together. The other way of doing it is highlighting it at story time. So making sure that you're just coming back to the word again. Do you remember earlier when we talked about escape? Can anybody clap the syllables out again? Can anybody think of something that might escape? Can we talk about it, say the word again to our partners? Anything that helps the children think about that word again. Another great thing to do is having a word bag, putting objects that represent the previous week's words in a bag and talk about them as you take them out. This is a really lovely thing to do. So we've got here, this is one we've got, they've got a spoon there for gobbles, a potato for harvest, and the chicken for a cross because they've just done Rosie's walk. This was a setting that had just been doing that. So it was Rosie's walk that Rosie had gone across the farmyard. And you can be really creative about what goes on in this bag. And we've seen some absolutely gorgeous bags that have been in lots of different settings. One of the ones that we really think was marvellous was a school where they wanted to put the word yesterday in their word bag. And we thought, oh, there's nothing, what could you do for yesterday? I wouldn't have a clue what object you could have for yesterday. And what they put in was a book that they read yesterday, and they changed it every day. And so children got a really good idea about what yesterday was, and it's in an object. And that's really good. We've had really positive that children really like the word bag. We've seen some amazing sparkly ones. In fact, the nursery that I went in to see for this picture here, they had a beautiful red sparkly word bag that ended up, when I came back to take a photograph of it, sadly had become a box, which was less exciting. But the children seemed to really enjoy it, which was lovely. So being creative, so one of the other ones that we had as an example was the word that they were doing was growing. And so we had, they had an adult sock and a child sock. So it's something that you can have in that really represents the word. The other thing that's really good is if you can keep the word in but swap the object. So gobbles isn't always a spoon. So the gobbles maybe could be, I don't know, a cake, an apple, something like that. Harvest might be a different vegetable. A cross might be something you might walk across, like a I don't know, a playground or something, a picture of a playground. But best if you can avoid pictures, all the better, but sometimes it's really hard and you have to. And it's particularly hard when you've got verbs in there. Adjectives are okay. Adjectives are usually quite easy, relatively easy to find an object for those. Verbs are a bit trickier. So you can take some children acting out the verbs. That can be a really nice way. It's nicer if you can get your own children acting out the verbs rather than a published picture, because it's more meaningful. But sometimes the public pictures are clearer, so you can use both. So using objects where you can is a really nice way of reviewing words, and children can delve in and find their objects and having a chat about it. So that's great. Another thing that you can do is a concept book. So you can get children, this can be a homework task, you can ask children to come back with pictures of themselves showing the particular word. So this word here is empty. So all these children have found things that are empty, taken a picture of it, and then they're bringing it back to school, and it can be made into a paper or an electric book. So it can be something that's just up on the computer for the children to click through. I've got the symbol up there to help remind everybody that that's the word that we're talking about it. And adults can be around prompting children to be using the word empty. And the more they can use those words in a sentence, the better. So here we've got the water bottle is empty, the jam jar is empty, the bucket is empty, the wheelbarrow is empty. The more adults can say those sentences and the more children can join in, that's great. So it's just a chance to think about the words in another way. So we've got lots of different reviewing things. We've got chatting at the end of the day, parents talking about it on the way home, we've got our word bag, we've got this concept book, all those things that are going to make a difference to help review those words. So we started off selecting our right words. We've selected the word that's really meaningful, that's going to be really useful, and we're going to use it lots of times. Then we're going to teach it. We teach it in a multisensory way, using simple language to learn our new words, using interesting stories that children will be engaged in. And we're going to get them to use those songs to help them get those words firmly in their heads. Then we're going to activate it to make it meaningful. So we're going to choose situations. We're going to add those pictures around the room to activities so that we know that those are the words that we need to use in children's play, and prompting them to use it, giving them the right equipment so they know what they're doing. And then we come back and we review those words. So we review it in lots of different ways to help the children really establish those words in their long-term memory. And then that gives children a really robust start. And once they really know enough about the words, then they can start to encounter them naturally, and they'll add greater knowledge to it. And we want to sow enough of a seed there so that they can start being interested and engaged with words, so they can add information, because words are alive. If we don't use them, they disappear again. So we have to constantly encounter words and build up knowledge so that they really become very firm and they've got good understanding to support their academic success. Now, before we go on to the next section, we're going to have another poll. Anita's going to bring up a poll, so I'm going to go on mute and she's going to take over.
All right, so we're putting our next poll live on screens now. You should be able to see it. If you can just answer the question, how important is vocabulary for the children you work with? All right, the answers are coming in. We're going to keep the poll live for just a few more seconds. All right, so it seems that it's really important because 96% of our participants feel that it is so, and just about 4% feel it's quite important. Okay, so we have closed the poll now, and it's back to you, Anna.
Hi, welcome back. Okay, so the next part we've got is make words count. So this is really about celebrating words. We can't teach children all the words they need to learn. And the average adult has 30,000 words, and most of those they're going to get in school. That's 7 new words every day. We can't teach children 7 new words. So it's about making sure they're interested and engaged with words, so it becomes something that's part and parcel of your setting, and actually just celebrating language and celebrating words in lots of different ways so that children are really interested and engaged in words. So if you've got a visitor that comes into your setting, how would they know that words are valued? And there are lots and lots of different ways you can do that, but here's a few examples. So this is obviously what early years settings are really good at. It's reading and acting out stories, encouraging children to imagine their own stories, using all those beautiful props that you see in lots of settings, and making sure that we're talking about their vocabulary within those books. But reading is one of the best ways of increasing your vocabulary. There's such rich vocabulary within books. So if we look at, there's a study that looks at the words in early years books in comparison to college students talking, and actually those words in early years books are more complicated than college students talking. Again, it's American research, but it's the same here. But actually we've got lovely words. If you think about stomped and slithered, all those lovely words you get in books, we don't use those so much in everyday spoken language, but really rich source of vocabulary within our books. So enjoying books, enjoying the vocabulary within books, making up stories, those are ways that are going to really expand children's vocabulary. We've all got, there's lots of beautiful home corners that I see across the places that I visit. This is I think it's very brave having big wheels in your setting. There's a lovely picture that we've got from Pinterest here. But it's thinking about new vocabulary that you're going to use with into your garage. And what's really key is we're thinking about those Goldilocks words, really useful words that a child maybe a couple of years older than don't already have, and that they're going to encounter again. So not the words that they already have, but maybe words that they could learn to have. So we've got words that we do here. It could be maybe mechanic. It could be they might have fix already. It could be maybe it's a spanner if that's something that they encounter. It's having really good words. So thinking before they go into the home corner, are there some words that they could use? Maybe having those words up in the garage to remind adults to prompt and maybe talk to children. The other one that's nice is to have whisper words. So whispering to children, oh, remember you could try and use this word. So you whisper to them a word to try, a whisper word. so that it just turns into something that's a bit exciting. And it's good to make sure that you've kind of really taught those words before they start. So maybe when we've done the direct teaching slides that we've done already, maybe those words that you've already incorporated. So we've really got some exciting words that are going on in our play. Then we've got different areas that you can have for contained private conversations. I think often when you look up, and if you're looking on Pinterest, there's some lovely things that are for reading, and that's great, and we want to encourage children to read. But how can we make those contained spaces places where children can have conversations? Because peer interactions are one of the wonderful ways of really developing language skills. So can children snuggle into a place together and have a chat? It's really nice. I love the Cozy Cove there. I'm not sure how many children you get in there, but it's a nice place if you could. And those sheer fabrics are really nice, where they feel as if it's private and secure and nobody can see them, and then you can still monitor what's going on. So you've got chances for those peer-to-peer interactions, which are really valuable for promoting language and vocabulary. Then it's looking at interactive play, but adding stopping points. So in the bike riding area, so have a mechanics workshop or a pit stop. So those children in earlier settings, often boys, ride round and round and round and round the playground, and they're just missing those interactions, those chance for conversation with their peers. So having something where they need to stop and they need to, this is a beautiful car wash, somebody is very inventive, making up this car wash for that bike to go through. So you've got somebody there who's going to come and talk to them as he's coming out of his car wash. So that they've got that interaction, you might need to model some of that. Maybe again use some of those words that are going to be really important for using in that car wash. Then we've got making words count, again in terms of the tasks that we're doing. So if you're about to do a cooking task, let's think about some of the words that you can use within that task. So pouring, kneading, stirring, lots of lovely verbs that you can get there. So having them out for the adults to use within their cooking, so as they're cooking, to make sure they're using those words so that they're getting that experience as they're pouring things, the child's hearing those words. Before going on a trip or anything new, think about the vocabulary they're encountered. Remember to be looking at Goldilocks words. So not the really easy words, not the farm or tractor, but maybe words that they haven't got yet and that they're going to be able to use in lots of different settings. So a range of nouns, verbs and adjectives. So you've got these here: hutch, gentle care, silky, gobble, stroke. Lots of lovely words that we're going to be able to use when we're going on that trip. And then reminding the children as they're touching the silky rabbit or stroking the animal, that they're using their words as they're experiencing it. And that's where the power comes, is when we experience it and we're hearing the language that matches to that. This is one of our favourite ideas. It's making words count as dressing up as your favourite character, favourite word. So we've got here one, we've got sour and ocean, and we've got slime and bite and brain. So it's using your imagination to show a word. So lots and lots of schools dress up as their favourite character on book day. This is an alternative. Let's look up what's your favourite word and think of a costume. You can have really elaborate costumes like car. I've seen some beautiful pictures of that, of when the children's a very ornate costume but actually a simple word, or you can have a really complex word like dull and just come in grey. So it doesn't matter, you can go either way, but it's about that celebrating of words and enjoying words and talking about it. So on this, the Deborah Fraser website, they've got some lovely pictures to share with children dressed up in all sorts of different things. So these are all the different areas of word-aware teaching vocabulary in the early years. We've just touched on direct teaching and making words count, and obviously there's loads of more ideas within the book on those areas and all the other bits and pieces of those sections within the book. Okay, there's also lots of ideas on our Pinterest page. So if you log onto our Pinterest page, they're all in the different sections of the word, where some of them are for primary age children into secondary, and some of them are early years examples there. Lots of photos of great things that other people have done. Then we've got some, these are all our contact details. That's our website and our email. And my colleague Stephen does lots of things on Twitter, so he's always tweeting some really interesting things. So have a look at him on Twitter, and then there's our Pinterest page to have a look at. So anything you want to do to have a look at this or contact us, do let us know. We do come around the country delivering training to lots of different places. So get in touch if you're interested in some training. These are all our references that we've got that you can have a look at of anything that you need to know about where we've got our resources from. And then the last thing we've got here is we've got an exclusive 20% discount, and that's the code at the top there, WB2. And it's available at speechmark.net, and that's the number you can call, or you've got the sales at speechmark.net, and that's valid into the 31st of October, so you've just got this month now to be able to look up. So we've got the two word-aware books. So the first one, the yellow and red one there, is for primary, and this one is for early years. And then Language for Thinking we've got there, which is the red and orange one that people might be familiar with, and it's just about, I think, this week coming out in colour. So the Language for Thinking is out there, so that's available to order now. So that will make a really big difference to have something in colour. So those have been coloured beautifully, so that's really great. So that's all from me. Thank you very much. We've got some questions coming in, and I'll answer those questions. I'll hand back to Anita now.
Wow, thank you, Anna. That has been quite enlightening. And yes, we've been getting questions already, so let's move right into them. There's one question here that says, how many words would you teach at one time?
That's a million-dollar question. Well, what we tend to say in an early years setting is what we tend to do is we have one word from a topic in a week and one word that you've chosen from a literacy book, and then one concept. So kind of 3 words a week is what we go for. But what we also think is really important is that the early years settings aren't overwhelmed to start with. So start with 1 a week. Make sure that they actually do 1 and they really enjoy it and they see what they're doing, so that it makes a difference for the children and it seems manageable to them. So make sure that it's not overwhelming to start with. But yeah, 3 words a week would be really good. I'll hand you back.
All right, so I'm just going to read out the next question. It says, all of the ideas you talked about are applicable to many populations, including deaf children. I'm wondering if you have any specific ideas for this population of what was already mentioned.
Not specifically, really. I think it's about making sure that you really extend the kind of hands-on experience. That's the bit that's going to make the most difference. So it's really kind of the physical side of things that are going to really add to their knowledge. So it's making sure that they're doing the acting out, that they're really touching and experiencing. That's really what's going to make the difference for the deaf population. So it's really practical. The stories so that they're really engaged with it, and then practical, lots of practical experience. So I think will make the most difference. Okay.
All right. So here's another question. Can you give tips about teaching second language children who have never been exposed to English and have no reinforcement at home?
Well, one of the really important things is that children are learning vocabulary in their own language. So anything that you're doing in the earlier setting, if they can support in their own language, that's what's really going to make a difference. So obviously, telling the parents the words that you're doing, see if they can translate those words into their own language and use them at home as much as possible. I know that's a big challenge. One of the things that we've worked that's been really successful is introducing Alan the Alien. And Alan the Alien has a box. And in that box, adults can add in things that the children might not know. So particularly children with English as additional language come into school just not knowing what any of the equipment is in the school. So the adults can pop in the box things that Alan the Alien might not know. And then you spend a little bit of time at some point in the day with everybody telling Alan what's in that box. And then children can add items that they don't know into that box. because these sort of children will never ask words they don't know. They don't have enough language for that. But they can pick up an item and they can put it in Alan's box, and that's been really, really effective. There's a section within the book for higher level needs, which you can use for children who've got poor language learning difficulties, but also with children who might need a bit of extra support because they haven't got the English. So that's the kind of small group work on the more basic concepts, and there's a very clear structure for looking through those with some simple everyday way of looking at the words that they might need to teach. There's kind of guidance on that, and actually teaching some of those very basic words. So we can really make a difference and support those children with English as additional language.
Okay, do you have any advice on how to win over early years teaching staff and get them to see how important vocabulary is?
I think it's about starting off with some structured things. I think it's really about trying to get things at a whole class level. So it's about demonstrating to staff. It's about going in and sharing it. And one of the things that's been really effective has been the concept teaching. And we use a little thing called Concept Cat, who kind of acts out these little stories. And they've been a real winner in terms of getting early years settings on side. So going in and demonstrating with a whole class. So if you are a speech and language therapist wanting to go in and visit schools, actually saying, can I come and show you? Can we have a look and see? And actually once teachers see what a difference it makes and how much the children like it, then that really helps with getting them on side. I think it's about kind of giving them some of the evidence, actually saying that this language makes a big difference. It's about selling the fact that actually language is going to affect academic results, and that's the bit that lots of teachers do know that, but actually not everybody does, and it's really about selling that message that actually we can make a difference to these children's academic abilities by developing their vocabulary skills, and that's what we need to really talk about and get people on side, because this makes a difference. It makes a difference to the children in terms of what they're able to access.
And here's another one. What are whisper words?
Sorry, I didn't hear you. You say it again.
What are whisper words?
Whisper words. Whisper words. Whisper words are just saying to children that actually these are words you could use. It's just a matter of whispering words. So if the children are in free play, I'm just going to give you a whisper word. So if the word's been teaching was escape, I would just go up to a child and say, I'm going to give you a whisper word, and then you whisper to them, escape. Can you use the word escape in your play? So you're just whispering to them a word that they could then use with their peers.
I think we have time for just one final question. What is the most important area to focus on for a child with specific word finding difficulties in SLT? I think what's important is that it's lots of different areas, and I think you've got to have the basic skills to be able to learn and access words, but it is, I think, about hands-on learning is going to make the most difference to a child like that. And I think it's about making something really, really practical. There isn't a clear answer to that one. It's about looking at the words that are going to be really practical for them. So either starting with words from the topic, but if you're going to choose topic words, then you've really got to look for words that are going to be cross-curricular. They're going to get in lots of different areas, because they're going to find it really hard to learn words. So it's making sure that we're learning words that's going to come up not just in this topic, but in every topic. If you're going to choose words from books, then it needs to be something that's going to come up lots. And I think that's the key to it, rather than one particular area. Concepts are going to be really difficult, and those ones will make a difference. I think the more that we can have it embedded in their everyday curriculum, so that they're getting it in lots of different situations, that's the thing that's going to make the difference. All right, thank you, Anna. We really appreciate your time and efforts taken for today. And a big thank you to everyone for joining in. Sorry we didn't get to answer all the questions. We'll be doing a Q&A with Anna on the remaining ones. The recording of this webinar and the presentation will be available shortly. Don't forget the 20% discount we're offering exclusively to our participants for WordAware 2. You can get it online at speechmark.net using the discount code WB2, as you can see on your screens. Thank you for joining us and have a good evening.